Wait. There you go. Good morning. Good evening, good morning, merry time of day. See, my buttons are over here. Hello. We have a snuggly little Soot who is happy for some lap time. She knows when I pull my desk over to the live streaming area that I'm going to be sitting down for some time, and she seems to want to capitalize it a lot of the time. You sweetie. Look at that long sausage cat. Hello Catpaw, hello Max, hello Luxolaire and Craftlead, welcome. Lots of good projects happening, I see. Hello Snugly Void, yes. It's very snuggly. Sausage or slug, whichever you like, long soft things. Hello from Virginia. Hello Carolyn, welcome. Kappa has some leftover yarn from the As You Like It shawl and starting a pair of Sami mittens. That is very nice. Luxolaire going to be working on a second mitt after they finish their breakfast soup, which is very good. Hello Joanna. And Max has some more yarn and other things from a Christmas party. And I got a sketchbook and a clock. That sounds like very good loot. We have, for those of you who have been with me for a while, I actually finished the embroidery on this one because as I've been working on it and as December has been moving forward, I realized that this would make a very good gift for one of the people we are celebrating winter solstice with. So I went ahead and lined it, and I attached the sort of linen tape on the edge here, and then I pinned the linen tape on the outside, and I didn't finish it because, I mean, many of you have been with this project since the beginning, so I thought it would be that I thought you deserved to get to see it finished. So that is what we are doing today. We are just attaching this linen tape first on one side and then folding it over to attach it on the other side, and then I don't know if we will have time to attach a button as well, but that is what we are doing today. I thought those of you who have been with this project all year wanted to see it finished, so I wanted to finish it on stream for you all. Gianna says, I'm glad I'm live streaming today because I need to finish a little present and I don't have the motivation. Oh, I can hear that. Yeah, it's so close now, isn't it? The solstice and Christmas and all of the things. It just happened so fast this year with the moving and everything. Oops. I feel like it would be nice if Christmas was a few weeks away still, but it is not. I'm actually not sure where to put the clock that they got. I suppose that is a challenge. I hope you figure that out. When I lived in student housing, we also had very strict rules against putting any holes in the wall, though we were allowed to put holes in the, what's it called, moldings up, and then you can just run a fishing line, but I don't know what the rules are for you, but I hope you figure something out. If not, I mean, I have sort of gotten used to the sort of art of just stacking stuff on top of things, shelves and tables and what have you, as a way of getting around that. But I mean, it is nice. I kind of forget that we are allowed to hang things on the wall here, and I'm like, oh right, that is a thing that you are allowed to do. So I'm sure you'll figure something out. So got a needle, that's a good one. There we go. Brilliant says, I picked up the Rose of England designed by Marianne Kinsell and figuring out the correct gauge and best thread since I can't find the one she recommends. Yeah, that's always a challenge, isn't it? Some patterns do list like what sort of yarn they are using, but even then it can be a bit challenging if they are using a lace weight or something else. It can still be challenging to find something that is exactly the same. I do like weaving that uses the like length per weight, because that can be really helpful in terms of how sturdy it is. But yeah, it can be really challenging to figure out what gauge to use when you don't have the correct yarn, but I hope you figure it out. I'm sure you will figure out something to do. Joanna says they looked it up and it's a large project. Wow, that's still... large projects are fun once in a while, aren't they? Yeah, I kind of forgot that we talked about trying to put up the cat cam on one of my clamps with the long rod to see if we could get a better image of the madam, but it has been forgotten. But I did put it on my to-do list for next Thursday, so we shall see if I manage to remember it for then. I hope you're having a calm-ish coming up on the winter solstice and the end of the year. I find that this is always like a chaotic time of year because a lot of the time, you know, you have a lot of stuff that maybe work wants to get done before the new year. There's people running around finding gifts. And of course, those who don't celebrate can get it. Everywhere is so full, so you can't really escape it even if you don't celebrate it because there are so many people everywhere. Like, where are all these people the rest of the time? We're gonna have one of those where it's like one big knot. Yes, it is not It's really lovely to knit, not difficult, but the beginning is a bit confusing. But that's nice. I'm getting an increased appreciation for projects that are, you know, nice. They look really nice, but aren't super hard to stitch. Aha, I think we have. Are you going to be a really obnoxious thread? Because that's always great when we get some of those. Yeah, I have this and I have a couple. I have at least one more gift that I would like to finish, and then we shall see what happens in the new year. Does anyone have any exciting plans, or just plans for relaxing and trying to not get caught in the wave of everything happening everywhere all at once? But at the very least we can hang out and finish projects together. I still haven't finished my As You Like It shawl. I mean, Cat Paw stitched up theirs in record time and then already finished. And mine is kind of sitting in a knitting bag. I haven't touched it in a while. Maybe I shall finish that too before we start too many new things on the live stream. I don't know. I kind of like having, for the live stream I must admit, it's nice to have a few things going at once, to choose where the good old brain is at. But it's almost done. I only have a few centimeters left. I shall be ready to cast off. Yeah, I'm trying not to get it on you so that you can snooze in peace, but I am talking, which does interrupt your nap a little bit. Luxular says they have one last paper due for uni and probably have to leave early. Once it's done and submitted, I just going to be me and my mittens. Oh, that's always so nice, isn't it? When it's the last final thing and you actually get to have a breather before the new semester starts up again with all the new chaos that follows. Like that little space in between is always very nice. And then you have a nice, fun reward to look forward to when you are done. We usually try to have that too, like some sort of small just relaxation or celebration or something or other when you finish the last exam, because it's a bit of a marathon work, isn't it? And then the pressure of wondering how it went, but that's not something we have to worry about right as we finish the exam. We actually have a few red cups, and I was considering bringing one to the live stream today to sort of be more wintry cozy vibes, but they are kind of, I like this one because it has a really wide base and then fairly straight up. I also really like the ones I have that curve in, keep the tea warm, and it's also really nice to hold and be cozy. But the red cups that we have really narrow base, and then they like widen out almost into like a triangle cone shape, and I'm clumsy, and that kind of tiny base and heavy top, I'm gonna tip that over all over my computer or something. I just know it, so I stick with these, you know, safe, stable cups that are a little bit harder to tip over. Maybe I should look in a thrift shop for some cups that are Yule winter themed but has a more stable base. They're just full of winter solstice items right now. Hello, darling. you gonna behave? Are we gonna be friends, or are you gonna be one of those threats? Bottom heavy mugs are a laptop saver? Exactly. Physics to the rescue. Just popping in. Hello, Lina. Welcome. Go out and shop for food in a little. Want to say good Yule? Chat later. Yeah, god Yule. Have a good one. I hope there aren't too many people at the shops. We have plans to do the sort of last food shopping before everything closes down for the holidays and all the we call them just red days, sort of holidays when shops are closed. So we want to do that tomorrow. That's our big out of the house plan for tomorrow, is to take the great big old shopping list that I have accumulated the last few weeks and go and do all the Christmas shopping all at once that we haven't gotten already. You know, usually that's things like the fresh veg that we are going to be living on the next week, and you know, snacks and other things for having a good cozy time. So I hope you have a good shop too. It's people are quite stressed at the moment in Norway. I think it's because Norway celebrates on the 24th. I think it's the 23rd that in Norway is nicknamed the Great Bumping Day. And what they mean by, like, not bump, but like on the car, you know, when they get a dent. So maybe the Great Denting Day is a better way of putting it. Car denting day, because people are so stressed. They drive so erratically because they have 1,000 things on their list to do. So if you're out on that day, you have the greatest risk of getting damage to your car, because there's just, people have so many things to do and so many things to finish and get ready, and everything is just everywhere all at once. Refuse to buy anything but bottom heavy glasses and mugs with cats about? That is a very good strategy. Honestly, I don't really like our red Yule themed cups either, because I am really picky about, it's something that I've grown into as Spouse preferred it. Like, I like the rim to be thin, because if you have a really thick, you know, chunky ceramic or porcelain, like a really thick, I feel like I have my mouth full of porcelain and no tea. Like, I prefer the really thin rims, and the red ones have quite a thick rim, so maybe they will eventually get donated to a charity shop of some kind, and then we buy some new ones from the charity shop and have a recycling of cozy things in that way. I might do that. I wanted to go to the charity shops and look for some new mugs, some new fun ones that we can have throughout the year, because it's fun to go look for different things that make you smile. I remember I asked Spouse, they were going to a flea market with a friend and I said, you know, maybe you could look for one mug that we could put in our cupboard as a fun little mug to cheer us up, and they came back with a mug. I don't have it here, but it's a mug that has a llama on it, and it says "No problema" on it. And they were so proud of themselves, because the mug, of course being a mug, was an answer to the request of bringing a mug home. But the text on the mug was also the answer to the question if they could buy a mug and bring them home. So it was like a double 2-for-1. They answered the question not once but twice, and they were so happy with the dorky cup that they got, and I thought it was cute, so that's a win either way. The 23rd is the most busy day in Canada too. The 24th is mostly just the absolute last minute things rather than cart filling shopping. Oh, interesting, yeah. From what I hear from friends who have worked on the 24th, you know, either in gas stations or grocery shops, because they're open just a half day and then they close at I think 4 or 5, so pretty early, is that at that stage on the day that, you know, at that stage people are just kind of, they're over the stress and they're just grateful that you're open so they can get that last minute gift or whatever. And they're more in the spirit of Yule, whereas on the 23rd, people are still massively stressed. Oh, doorbell. Hello. Didn't expect that. Well, Soot is afraid of the doorbell. Poor thing. She learned it from Enya. And now Soot has also taught Embla that doorbells are scary, and from them we should go what is it? Distracted by the sounds from downstairs. But yeah, we might not see Soot for the rest of the evening, because she has learned that when the doorbell rings, we run and we hide in the basement in a box where Spouse has put a little blanket for her. And then she comes out a few hours later, even if it's just a very small sound, poor thing. She has just learned that doorbell rings, we must run and hide. Oh well. Max is wondering if there was any null-bound fragments from the Paleolithic era, like the Ice Age, for example. I'm not aware of any. I mean, the Ice Age was the time where the Great Migration period happened. In Norway, at least, like as the ice was receding, people were settling upwards. I'm not sure. I don't have anything from there. And Joanna chiming in with knowledge as usual. As far as we know, we have extremely little organic material from the Paleolithic. That makes sense. It was very long ago. And, you know, textiles do preserve very poorly. But yeah, I think most of what I'm aware of is like bronze, not necessarily null-bound, but textile fragments is Bronze Age and a little later than that, depending on where you find yourself. I have extremely little knowledge of, you know, the Asian textile finds and things like that, because, I mean, we know that they have a much larger botanical, biological variety and richness of plants and everything like that, because they didn't have an ice age that sort of set back the clock the same way we did in Europe, so they have a lot more plants. I don't know if that also translates to them having more archaeological fragments. I do not know, but yeah, I do not know if there are older needle-bound fragments than that. Oldest clothing I can think of right now would be the one from Ötzi. Does anyone know older ones? No, I thought Ötzi was like... I know I've heard that Ötzi was the most, you know, preserved whole set of clothing, and that's what's so impressive with it. I think it's also one of the oldest, is it not? Is that just a Eurocentric? I have so little knowledge about anything African or Asian or even American, both South and North. I mean, history was not my major. I just pick up fascinating things here and there. Here people start celebrating when they finish work on the 24th, then it goes on until the 26th. Oh, interesting. All around the clock. Wow, that's ambitious. Or Monday if the 26th falls on a Sunday. Partying, music, fireworks for 30 hours. Wow, that is quite a lot. Pardon if you can hear the noise downstairs. It's a lot of I don't know happening, but I hope it's not too distracting. Yeah, in Norway we celebrate sort of from the 24th until New Year's Eve, which is, you know, actually a week exactly, but it's not non-stop. It's kind of like inviting friends and family over for dinner and then going to dinner, and then, at least in my family, we also sometimes have rest days in between. Not all families have that, but our family did, because we are a lot of introverts, so sometimes we would just stay home, especially on the day after the big celebration on the 24th. We would make dinner from the leftovers and just relax, because there's a lot of stuff. I remember that people used mammoth wool to knit some garments, which I think they were referring to knoll binding or weaving. Yeah, I don't think they were knitting, because I think knitting is younger than that. But I mean, as far as making fragments, we know that they were spinning and making. They were talking. I don't remember when they were talking about Mongolians and felted wool. That, you know, as one of the that might be a precursor and a prelude to spinning and making things, weaving from the textile. Might have been that, you know, they stuffed their boots and things like that with wool from their animals, and it felted, and that kind of led to felting of clothing and felted wool and that kind of thing, where you don't need to weave at all. And I don't remember how old that is, but I don't think it's quite that old. But it might be that it precedes spinning and weaving and that kind of thing. But these things are difficult, aren't they? Could mammoth wool have the same effect as modern wool from sheep? Could it be more dense? And of course, that is hard to tell, because even now sheep are very different from sheep 1,000 years ago, so it's hard to tell how the fibers behaved for 10,000 years ago. That would be interesting. Hi Evie, welcome. Of course you drop by when we are having, I don't know, old textile discussions. Another fragment from Germany is, wow, almost 8,000 BCE, also made of bast fibers. Yeah, that was what I remember from the Golden Thread and other textile books, that sort of, we thought wool was an easy target first, but plant fibers might also have been some of the oldest. Whether that is because they preserve slightly better, I mean, no textiles preserve well, or if that is that they started with bast because they could just use animal skins wholesale and they needed something to sew it with. I don't know. The oldest trousers we know, which was made from spun and woven wool, is circa 3,000 years old. That is still very, very old. Reminds me of the old adage that, you know, the Egyptian empire, or not empire, and the Egyptian, like, I don't know, dynasty? Civilization, society, was so old and lasted for so long that even in Egypt they had ancient Egyptologists, because the civilization was just that old and continuous that they were studying the history of themselves, even as we are studying them today, because the distances in time are just mind-boggling. Mammoths still existed when the pyramids were built? Yeah, but the pyramids are really old. If you're asking me numbers, I can't provide any on the fly, but... According to Harvard, archaeologists found 34,000-year-old flax yarn. That is interesting. It's not wool, but flax. I remember the fibers, but it's really cool. Only on a very remote island in northern Siberia where no humans lived. I have nothing to contribute other than reading the comments, because I don't have as extensive history knowledge as that. But I love to see it. But yeah, I can't remember finding any. Oh, we are about to have some ads. So we are going to take a break, any water break, and be back in a moment. You won't miss anything. You mean the pattern was inspired by the tartan of the Celts and other Germanic cultures? You mean the trousers from many thousand years ago from Asia? I am not sure that the inspiration would go that way. I think rather it would go the other way around. If that is, because, I mean, so many Asian cultures are so much older than anything in Europe, again, because of the Ice Age. I remember thinking about... Well, I don't know if I can show you. I don't have an example of it, but... I mean, this is kind of similar, but not quite. But in Norway we have... well, it's the typical quilted rose, isn't it? You know, the pattern with eight petals. And I remember, like, we have a very traditional mitten from Selbu in Trøndelag, where we call them Selbu mittens because of the pattern is very specifically to Selbu. And then when you compare that to some of the weaving patterns from silk from China, from much older than that, and you know that Vikings had, you know, really prestigious, wealthy Vikings could buy small scraps of silk and maybe probably like cut it into strips and decorate their clothing with it as an expense. You know, you wouldn't have a whole garment probably out of it, but as a decor. So knowing that they imported, and also we had, I remember, small amounts of rice in the Oseberg grave. So we know there was trade happening. We know, you know, Constantinople had trade happening and that Vikings went all the way down there. And so I think it's more likely that people were inspired by those textiles coming from China and then used those to influence cultures in their neighborhood. Because there is some evidence that as much as we think of this as something like these Selbu mittens as quintessentially Norwegian, and they have been for many hundreds of years, the original inspiration might have come via trade routes and the Great Silk Road from Asia. Similar with the story of Cinderella. I mean, that thing about very small feet really fits into the whole practice, the horrific practice of wealthy people in China of, you know, foot binding, because if you couldn't walk, you couldn't work. So it was a sign of wealth to have a wife that couldn't physically work and was in pain, which aristocratic fashion doesn't make sense. But I'm thinking like how well that fits and how stories move as they travel and change, and how we, even just in a relatively small geographic area, you can have a fairy tale with a lot of different variations because things change as it gets retold. And your old tradition, you know, is imperfect and things will change and morph and become something different. Even in Norway, we had, you know, our own Brothers Grimm. We had a similar person like that, you know, traveling in Norway, collecting fairy tales, and even just, you know, within Norway, which is a very tiny country, but has a lot of mountains and physical barriers to people traveling to each other. So you get a lot of local cultures that is quite different from each other. Even in tiny Norway, you had fairy tales that had the same core and tons of different variations, and often very big variations too. So it makes sense that things would just keep changing one way or the other. The Bronze Age was in full swing 3,000 years ago in Europe, and they had recently been settled from people coming in from Asia, but the Germanic and Celts didn't really exist at that time. They only started out, I mean, I'm unsure, we don't know at what point the Sami migrated to Norway, but it's earlier than 1500 years ago, which is when we think that, like, around 500 after our current time is when we think that Germanic tribes migrated north towards Norway and started settling as the ice receded. So that's kind of the limitation of that kind of history. But we know that the Sami came from the north over the Siberian tundra from Asia that way, and we don't really have, because they are such a nomadic and nature-focused people who walk around, and the things that they do, they leave so few traces. There was an article from an archaeologist who walks around in nature looking for Sami places of settlement, Sami burial sites, and they're super hard to see because they don't leave traces. You sort of have to look into cracks in stones and know exactly what you're looking for. And they leave so few traces, so we don't really, at least last I checked, we don't really know how early, but they came earlier than the Germanic tribes that's migrated northwards from Europe, but we don't know how much earlier. But yeah, so at least history in Norway is very limited by the ice. I was making bento and got distracted. Hi everyone, hello Lynn, welcome. I'm sure it is a very nice bento. 803C is what is bento. It's a Japanese inspired lunchbox or a Japanese lunchbox, like usually rice and eggs and vegetables or meat and things and tasties. And Lynn has posted some pictures in the cooking channel in our Discord, and they look delicious. 10 out of 10 lunches. They look absolutely amazing. And Doro says good evening. Good evening, Doro. Welcome. We are having a bit of a tangent as usual. I finally finished the embroidery of the little pouch, clutch, whatever you want to call it, containment device. And I wanted to finish it on stream, so we are just now attaching the linen tape to the edges, and we'll see if we get further than that. But I also have a little one of these wooden, long toggles. But I thought we'll make a nice button. It's a similar one to what I have on the one that I use. Their tradition was oral and thus stamped out with the integration. You know what I mean? We lost so much. Yes, that was a really big problem. It's really tragic because a lot of the Sami traditions and stories have now changed to be Christian, which they weren't before they were forcefully converted. And I find that really sad that we lost so much of what they were like originally. But again, because their tradition is oral, we don't have written records of what they were like rune drums now often have depictions of Jesus and things like that on them, and it makes you wonder what were they like before. And we might never know, because they didn't leave traces, so it's very hard to figure out that kind of thing. If anyone has any book recs about the Sami, I'm all ears. Ooh, in English it's going to be a challenge. I don't know a lot of good. I know there are some really good, but I think they're all in Norwegian. There are a couple of professors in Tromsø. If you're looking anywhere, University of Tromsø is going to be one of the best in Norway about that, because there is a thriving Sami community there, and they have a lot of history research on the Sami and the area. There is some research and Sami settlements further south as well, like around mountains, and even where I am too, in Trondheim, you have some, but I remember there being some professors down there. But I remember when I was doing my singular episode about the Sami with the Luca for my friend, all of it was in Norwegian. It was very hard to find anything outside of that. And I don't think that has changed over much. Good evening, Toria. Welcome. I hope you are having a good latter half of December and you're not too stressed with all the stuff happening this time of year, typically. But yeah, I shouldn't be clicking too much because it makes so much noise for the poor microphone, but yeah, I remember there being a couple of professors and a couple of books. But I don't know how accessible that is outside of, the Nordic countries like Finland, Norway, Sweden, where there is a Sami community, because, yeah. We'll check it out. Yes, that is the thing. Or is it one of the Sami languages? Yeah, North Sami, which is the Sami language that is in the area around Tromsø. It's the biggest one. It is the biggest Sami language that is still alive. But further south, you have like Lule Sami, you have South Sami, and then of course you have Kven as well, which is Finnish and not Sami, but a different I'm blanking on the word in English, but original settlers, native people, and they are so different. They do not understand one another. They are completely different languages. They're not like dialects, and there's always this continual discussion of, do you focus on trying to preserve one of them, the biggest one, or do you try to preserve all of them, because they all are important languages in their own right, but some of them have less than 50 people who actually speak the language, and then it's difficult to find not just people speaking the language, period, but people who speak the language who are also wanting to be teachers and speak the language for the children who wish to learn it in a organized setting, not just in a parent to child or family member setting. Dialect in terms of what, Luxelair? Like you mean Sami? No, Sami languages are separate. Norwegian has dialects because we can still understand one another. It's the same core language, but Sami languages are distinct. A Lule Sami speaker and a North Sami speaker would not be able to understand each other. Language family. Oh yeah, no, I was thinking about Kvensk. Guess I was a digression with Kven. Kven, as far as I know, are not Sami. They're a different heritage people. I can word today, I swear. But they're like a different group of people who are also in Norway, and they often get forgotten because sort of everyone in Norway knows about the Sami, and then the Kvens sort of get pushed aside because people only have so much room in their head to think about native people, and then they end up forgotten, which is sad because they have their own unique culture as well that deserves preserving. That is a digression for I guess we often get on these digressions about different people and cultures and various ways that we inspire one another and try to take care of the culture in various ways. No, you were suggesting words for the one that you did not manage to remember. Yes, okay, yeah, true. No, I was thinking about, instead of the language, the people speaking the language, and the word for the term, not Native American because they're not American, but native people to the area. But I guess that wasn't very clear from how much I was jumping back and forth between language and the people speaking the language. When you were doing some research about the dilly bag, you noticed that it's actually needle-bound using simple loop stitch, and I think they used some sort of plant fiber to make it. I couldn't comment on that because I don't know the dilly bag and I'm unfamiliar with that find, so I can't comment either which way. But I do wonder at what point you consider something to be needle-bound as opposed to making net or looping or making other. I mean, sprang is fairly distinct because you're twisting the threads, but I mean, at what point is something needle-bound if this technique is very simple? I mean, York socks have a very simple stitch and they are needle-bound, but I do not know. For being a history enthusiastic channel, I don't have that extensive history knowledge. It wasn't what I studied, so I always study, very specifically for a video and then have very limited knowledge outside of that. And sometimes it's just very hard. You want to do a video and you can't find enough sources, and then you just have to put it aside because you can't do a video on like 2 sources. That's a bit... It's going to be a bit thin no matter how you slice it. So you can put it aside and hope that you'll find more sources for it in time. Did I finish my tea? I did. No more tea for me. There is a bit of a Western bias that exists regarding dialects. The Chinese language are referred to as dialects despite being largely unintelligible with Mandarin. Ah, I see. Yeah, I guess that makes sense in terms of confusion around where something is a language and where something is considered a dialect, because I mean, depending on the definition, if the definition is that you can understand one another without actually knowing the other language, then Swedish, Danish, and Norwegian in some way could be considered dialects, because we can understand one another, although some of the words are different, but we are considered different languages. It's like so many things, it's not black and white, it's a gradient, just going kind of back and forth between the two. Jillian says, I just read a book that was referring to all of it as knitting or single needle knitting, and I'm not sure if I like that. Yeah, that seems a bit reductionist in not a good way. Like, at some point, I know that you have this ideal that things should be as simple as necessary, but no simpler, and that you should be able to explain something, even something very complex, to someone who has no knowledge about it. But at some point you simplify it too far and you end up just confusing people more because it's not specific enough, which is can be a very hard balance to strike, which you would know, Evie, with your experience as a teacher, that that balance between being accurate and being understood. such a struggle when I was teaching in the lab, and teaching it was easier when I was teaching analytical chemistry, because that's what I studied, that's I know it deeply, and it was easy to go back and forth between simple explanations and more details. But in organic chemistry it could be a challenge. I haven't been in the chat so much recently because I'm adjusting to a new time zone. Oh, interesting, Stripy Crayons. But hello everyone, and enjoy the language chat. We're always full of digressions, aren't we? Random talks going any which way. But I guess that is the beauty and the charm of live content, unedited, unscripted, all of the things that I usually rely on so heavily to get anything eloquent said, and I just get my full chaos brain and all the ums and ahs and likes and so's and other binding, carrying words between the sentences. I think the Dutch are not happy if we call their language a German dialect. Exactly. There is a lot of, pride and stuff related to languages and countries and all of those things. So that is a large part why I think that we don't call them languages. No, that we call them languages as well, because we don't want to. We don't want to reduce people beyond that in a way. So I guess there's all that tied up into it as well, isn't there? It's a shame our lap cat vanished, but at least she has a safe spot in which to hide. And the scary, scary doorbell. Hello, newish subscriber, loving your channel. Well, thank you. Found you through the collab you did with Evie. Well, Evie happens to be in chat, which is always a bit surprising when friends are in chat. But hello, Sarah, welcome. We try to do live streaming fairly regularly, but sometimes I get sick. So if you want to know when I'm streaming, I would encourage you, if you can, to join our Discord, because if I'm sick, if I'm having a bad migraine day, my health is having a spike, I will try to let people know in the Discord that there won't be a live stream that Thursday. But we try to have it on Thursdays, health permitting, but I cannot always do that. Accurate versus being understood 100%. That applies to so many topics in language itself as well, I think. Yeah. It's such a struggle, isn't it? Because everything at the end of the day is language and communication. We've talked about that here before, but for me, like, the older I get, the more I just realize that everything boils down to communication, you know, but communication is a two-way street. Even if you do all the work and you research and you sit there with the thesaurus, you check the dictionary, you make sure that you're using exactly the right word in exactly the right place, and you're trying to be as precise as absolutely possible, no matter all the work you do, you still don't know if the person you're talking to or the people, like multiple that you're talking to, are going to interpret your words in the way that you intended, and usually they don't, do they? Like, if they don't have the same definition of a word as you do, if they're like just assuming what they think, and sometimes people just hear what they want to hear wholesale without, like, they ignore a not in a sentence and then it changes the meaning entirely. Like, no matter how much you work on your communication, you're still, you know, it's still trying to communicate with the other person, and can still be a challenge, which is like, but at the end of the day, everything is communication between people. Hello, Alex, welcome. Hope you are having a good December and that you celebrated the I can't remember the word, but 2 weeks ago when you were celebrating, having fun, December traditions. This thread is really not cooperative. But language and communication has always been something that has fascinated me. In the beginning, because I didn't understand it, and it seemed to be a underlying language that people were speaking without the words that I didn't understand, and everyone else got the handbook for how things worked, and I didn't, so I had to sit and study people and study interactions and study movies and books, and I would ask, you know, I had friends in high school, we would watch movies, and I would ask, like, what does that mean? Why are they saying it like that? Why did that make them mad? And then I leveled up. I did the same thing with friends in university, except then I would be like, are they doing X because Y? Or are they doing this because that? And occasionally it would be, why are they doing that? I don't understand why they were so happy about that, you know, why they were so this and that. And, you know, you gradually build up a library of understanding different things, at least in a broad sense. Still gonna be individual situations that trip you out. I think you mean Nikolaus, the December tradition? Yes, it was something that was earlier in the month, not around the 24th and the 25th, and around the solstice. I already finished my spinning advent calendar. Oh no, you're early. I spun ahead a little because I expected to get behind, and then I just kept spinning, and now all done. Oh well, trusting you, I think you still have more yarn to spin, or more fiber to spin, even if the advent calendar is done and done. Or you can make stuff with the spun things. I think it was a couple of years ago now, but I bought a jigsaw puzzle for Spouse, and then I first separated out the edge pieces, and then I divided the rest into roughly equal-sized lumps, and then they got a small jar of jigsaw puzzle pieces every day. And like you, Alex, they were not too happy about that, because, like, well, I suppose unlike you, since I were giving them a small amount of pieces every day, they couldn't just continue, but that is what they wanted to do. They got really impatient and wanted to finish it, because the puzzle was taking entirely too long, and they got entirely too few pieces every day. So maybe that's what we should do, give them more stuff to do and more projects to work with. There's already a new project on my wheel? Yeah. I am entirely unsurprised. I have some fun stuff planned as well. I hope so, at least. That there will be some fun stuff going. Time is just moving so fast. I feel like I want to make all of these videos and I can't even make half because time just moves too fast. It didn't used to be like that, but I know the whole perspective on time changes as as we have the privilege of aging, and I've definitely found that to be true. Very much so. It's almost hilarious when you know the tropes. You talk about the tropes and then you're like, oh, the tropes are tropes for a reason. When your mother was younger, she tried to learn to crochet, but it didn't work out so well. I don't think her being left-handed has anything to do with it, unless she had very, dismissive teachers. Because, I mean, back a couple of decades ago, the discrimination against left-handed people was quite hard, but it's nothing but the capability. It's more about if people give you nasty comments about your left-handedness, which is so random. I even got that as a child. Like, it's not like this has vanished. You would get annoyed teachers who found it a bother that you were left-handed because it meant they needed different learning materials when you're learning to write, and just weird, weird stuff. So if they got mean comments because of that, I understand, but inherently for skill, being left-handed has nothing to do with it. It's a shame she couldn't have fun with it. Hello, Emma, welcome, and happy holidays. Happy holidays indeed. I hope you're having a good December, trying to add for some normalcy in the chaotic time that is wrapping up the year. I was thinking you could make tutorials on how to do knoll binding. I don't really do tutorials, and don't really do a lot of video requests either, because I find that if I'm doing something because I feel like I have to or someone is expecting it, then I lose the joy of the project and then I don't really want to finish. But yeah, I don't feel equipped to do tutorials on how to do things. I just like to do projects, and there are so many great tutorials out there where you can teach. If I inspire someone to go on and learn a thing, there are so many great tutorial videos out there already that they can lean on, and I think that is great. And I certainly couldn't teach anyone to knoll bind right-handed. I mean, we tried doing that with Shannon for her channel, and she ended up knoll binding left-handed because flipping things around was a bit challenging. So yeah, no, I don't think I would be at all qualified for that. I mean, as a lefty, and that's a side note, but as a lefty, you get so used to mirroring things in your head because everyone else is right-handed, and you have to find a way to mirror things. Otherwise, you're not going to learn anything, because the right-handed teachers are definitely not going to be much help because they don't know how to mirror things at all. You get used to that as a lefty, so. But it's not really a skill you develop at all as a right-handed crafter because you don't have to. So yeah, I don't think I could be much help at all in teaching a right-handed person to knoll bind, because they have so many other teachers already available to them without a lefty trying to and failing. I would look so awkward. I can't. I used to joke that if I break my left hand, I can't do anything, because on my right, I can write barely with my right hand, but it looks atrocious. I would be functionally not being able to communicate much at all. Left-handed crafting is possible, but it's tricky if your only teachers are right-handed. That is a good point. Although I have found that it is, like, depending on how old you are, it can be done. For me, it has more been about like a dismissive nature in the teacher. If they are like getting annoyed that it's more difficult to teach you because you're left-handed, if they sigh and they make comments like if you could only do it right-handed, if they have that tone that you are a bother, that you are a problem because you're left-handed, that is the problem I find more than a right-handed teacher. And we are about to have ads. Sorry, I'm a bit late to the party, but I'm gonna mute and make some tea. There we go, noisy thermos. Done and done. Time keeps moving faster because each year is a smaller portion of our lives, so it works mathematically, but I don't have to like it. I know, Luxelair, I know. It's so frustrating, isn't it? And also people were talking about it's not just the proportion, but it's also the lack of new experiences, because the older you get, the more you have experienced things. And a lot of the thing that is so... like our brain starts, there was something we talked about, our brain processes a lot more, it takes in a lot more when an experience is new, and that makes it feel like time moves slower because we're processing a lot, like it's a big chunk, we're taking it all in. Whereas when you've experienced it 10 times before, your brain kind of breezes by it because it's familiar, and that also adds on to time moving faster the older we get, because we have fewer new experiences because we, you know, have more experiences in total. Which is fascinating, but also, same, I don't have to like it just because it makes sense. This thread was exceptionally uncooperative. I could contain myself when I was still on the correct schedule, but once I broke it, I couldn't get myself back on track. Yeah, I can understand that in terms of advent calendars. Like once you've stopped following the timer, it's very hard to get back on it, isn't it? I'm making a Tunisian crochet Sontag shawl with hand-spun alpaca. Oh, Emma, that sounds amazing. That sounds like a really fun project. Was it you who hand-spun the yarn as well? Because I love those projects. I still haven't done one of those, you know, sheep to shawl projects, but oh my goodness, are they incredibly cool. I can find right-handed knoll binding tutorial and mirror it, making it easier for a lefty to learn. That is certainly a way to do it. I remember I was actually reading through some of the comments on Shannon's knoll binding video where I was showing her the basics, and that was one of the comments that people made, that they had parents or grandparents or other teachers either sit on a table opposite of them so that, you know, they could just mirror directly like that. They were just sitting one on each side of the table, or they were sitting with a mirror so the other person could look in the mirror, both of which were some of the most, I think, well-liked comments for how you could teach a left-handed person something that you know as a right-handed person. So mirrors and opposite side of the table were both well suggested. The mute button is not muting very well. Oh no, is it not? That is that is not very good. I apologize for it being very noisy for you. I wonder why it's not muting very well. I need to check that out, Alex. I apologize. I need to do some tests around the muting. Maybe it's calling from two different microphones again, which usually creates an echo, and I usually pick up on that. But yeah, I apologize for... Let me add that to my to-do list for next Thursday straight away, because that is not something that I want you to have to hear. Let's see, check. Hello, my sweet. Are you back already? My darling, I have a needle here that's going to stab you. Careful. Not muting micro... Where was I? Phone. And then I'm going to add that for next Thursday, because that's a deadline for a new live, and then maybe we actually do it. Yeah, I apologize if the squeak of the thermos is all in your ears. That is not my intention. We've had that problem before, I think, where when I check the muting in the beginning of the stream it works, but if I do it mid-stream it doesn't really work. Sweetie, you don't have to snuggle the microphone and give them more strange sounds that they wonder what are doing. What sort of holiday time treats are you having or seeing where you are? My mom's grandparents were from Norway, and mom had us all over to make krumkake and kringle recently. Oh, that is nice. Yeah, we have, of course, gingerbread, which in Norway is quite like flat and small and has a lot of the warming, nice Christmas spices that I like. I like the dark ones. You also have like lighter ones with light syrup, but I prefer the ones with dark syrup for extra flavor. And there are a lot of different food traditions. I think they did a poll and they were like Norwegians between Swedes and Danes. Norwegians were the one who were most looking forward to the food. And in terms of snacks, I have just made a batch. We call them We call them chess squares, where you just make a basic butter, pastry, sugar, sugar, flour, butter, which would make just basic butter cookies. And then you split it in half, and you add cocoa to one of them, and you roll them into long logs, and you stack them one on top of each other, so that you can make it into a 3x3, so 9 squares of different colors, and then you put it in the fridge and you chop it up into little chess squares. And I think they are quite fun to make. I started doing a thing where I add a half circle of each color to 2 of the sides, so it makes like a braided heart shape that is also quite common in Norway to make, which I think is quite fun. But yeah, a lot of the Norwegian Christmas cookies are very bland, very beige, which is Spouse is a big fan of anything beige and bland, but I don't know what else is very traditional. In my family, we have a not very traditional thing, which is, we call them orange tops, where you melt some fat and you add some chocolate and you add maybe a bit of orange peel. That's why they're called orange tops. And you let it cool until it's like quite cold, almost stiffening, and then you mix in. A lot of other families will make them with puffed rice, which are quite traditional. We make them with cornflakes instead. They were very crunchy, so you have chocolate and crunch and orange peel, and they were my favorite as a kid. They're one of those no-bake cookies, I suppose you would call them, because you just melt the fat and the chocolate and you just mix it, and that's that, which is... Joanna sewed the snap on backwards. Oh no! Apologies, or not apologies, but sympathies, Joanna. That is frustrating. But yeah, I don't know what else. I mean, donuts are quite common. We never made them in my family though, because some of our family members couldn't stand the smells. We would buy them. They are, I mean, we would translate it into donuts, but they're not like American donuts that are fairly large and glazed. These are quite tiny, and they're sweet, and they're not... don't add anything to them, no glaze, no icing. They're just like a little sweet donut, along with the other fairly bland and plain cookies. Sometimes we also would make fruitcake, which is actually very nice to have something soft alongside all the Christmas cookies that are so hard. But a lot of them do use the same base, butter pastry dough, and then you split it and you add different things to make it much faster on the baking. A lot of people also make lefse, which is like a soft bread type, I guess a tortilla, type flatbread. I mean, all countries have that kind of flatbread, don't they? Like, porridge and flatbreads are so ubiquitous in terms of that most cultures have some variation of that kind of thing. But you make a flatbread of some kind. It's a little bit sweet, and you fry it on a big flat frying pan type thing without edges. So I guess a crepe pan would be similar, or just a big slab of iron over the fires. And you bake them until they are done but not crispy and quite soft, and then you fill them traditionally with Norwegian brown cheese and butter, which is delicious, or with butter, sugar and cinnamon. It's also really, really nice. I think they're really good. And they're another treat that is soft, so you store them in the freezer, or you let them dry and you re-moisten them. Oh, we could add on the cat cow. And you re-moisten them when you're making them, and you add it. And of course, Norwegian brown cheese is delicious. I'm a big fan, but we used to joke when I was in university that if you wanted exchange students to like brown cheese, you would tell them that technically it's not actually cheese, it's more like toffee, because you're using the whey and you boil it down to caramelize the sugars, and you add cream. So in a culinary setting, brown cheese is a lot closer to fudge than cheese. But if you didn't want exchange students to like brown cheese, you would tell them, it was just brown cheese, and you would stop your explanation there. Especially people who liked cheese, they would expect something very different from what Norwegian brown cheese is. But if you tell them it's closer to fudge, they were more likely to have the expectations in the right place, and they would be like, oh yeah, this is actually quite nice. Emma said, yes, I have hand-spun alpaca. It's my first project with my hand-spun. Oh, that's exciting. That's so cool. Congratulations on making it that far. I'm the gardener of the family, and my mom and I are conspiring to use my purple fleshed potatoes to try and make some lavender lefse. Ooh, that would be so cool. You like, oh, I want to know more about that. That sounds amazing. Most cultures have porridge, flatbread stew, and some kind of dumpling. Yeah, that's the continuation of that, isn't it? Striped crayons. That I just remembered porridge and flatbread, but yeah, there are a couple of other ubiquitous things as well. I love lefse, similar to a crepe maybe. I think in terms of eating it, Evie, it's similar, but I think in terms of making it, it's quite different. Like the dough can be quite dense, although there are a lot of differences, but it behaves kind of more like pizza dough, but without the extreme springiness and without the yeast, I think. I don't think lefse has... Does lefse have yeast? The one we make doesn't. I don't know if other districts have a different variation. Again, this is one of those things that have, like, you have thick, you have thin. Some people make really thick lefse, some people make really thin lefse. There are a lot of varieties, and, you know, families have traditions associated with it, so you don't mess with lefse. I think porridge, flatbread, and beer were the first things human made after discovering grains. I've not really thought about that, but it makes sense. Oh, you are misbehaving because you weren't actually attached on that side, aren't you? Right, and you missed a stitch. Oh well. Yay for cat cam. Yeah, I forgot to put it on. I mean, she settled quite fast too, and I just forgot. I loved lefse as a kid when we went to holiday to Norway a few times, but brown cheese or mesost, yeah, no thank you. Yeah, it's an acquired taste. Some people don't like it. I am a big fan. I go for the darkest, most bitter, most goat milk brown cheese they have in the store, and I'm a big fan. But a lot of people go for the ones with a lot more cream and a lot more cow's milk that is a lot milder in flavor. So again, if you come to Norway or you ever have a chance to try brown cheese, if you don't like bitter, strong flavors, going for the lighter brown cheese, again, is a much bigger chance that you'll like it because it's much milder. It's not as sharp in taste. My oatmeal raisin theory: if expectations don't match up with reality, it'll make people not like it. Like how people eat raisin cookies expecting chocolate chips? Yes, Luxler, exactly. In Norway, they also started selling, in addition to raisin buns, and a lot of gas stations in Norway will have plain buns and raisin buns, it used to be, but now they also have chocolate chip buns, which I'm not the biggest fan of them. I prefer raisin buns, and it's the same thing. If I get a bun expecting it to have raisins and it's chocolate chips, I might have liked it if I knew the right expectations, but if I'm surprised, it's not going to be as fun of an experience, is it? The lefse you get at the grocery store in Minnesota and North Dakota might be entirely different. It might be, I don't know. I couldn't tell you since I haven't experienced both, but even in Norway you can get different kinds of lefse. I mean, we have, I can think at the top of my head, like most grocery stores will carry at least like 4 or 5 different kinds of lefse. Certainly at least 2, the thin and the thick ones. But it's a common like travel food. It's an easy, you grab a snack, you can grab a pack of lefse because they're easy to eat when you're out and about. So it's common for stores. Stores usually have at least a couple of different ones. That is also an interesting thing, isn't it, when we're talking about food, like what is easy to grab when you're out and about in different countries is so wildly different, but it's all convenience food, isn't it? It's all like about having something you can have while you're out, not having to cook it, not having to prepare anything. But yeah, I really like lefse. It's easy, it's sweet, it's a lot of old people will have it in the freezer to serve to guests when they come unannounced. It's kind of very ubiquitous. My grandma also made something. I'm not sure how it was spelled, but Fattigman. Oh yeah, deep fried dough using a fancy lazy iron and then covered in powdered sugar. Yes, they're called. I can spell it for you. Let's see. Where's me thing? They're called. Fattigman. And if you search for that word, you might find other things too, because it just means poor person, or directly it means poor man. And I can't remember why they're called poor man, but there is some story to it. But yeah, I have never actually had Fatiman. That's not a culture that was in my family. I've just heard about it. But yeah, some of the irons for some of the Christmas cookies are serious business. Like, they are so intricate. Like the krumkake that you mentioned are, so specific to, you only make that one cookie with it. My spouse is also really fond of sandkaker, which is sand cakes. They taste about as you would expect. They're plain, they're beige, they are crumbly, and they are made using tons of tiny, bite-sized pie tins, like old ones, and they are a hassle. I don't like making them. I've told spouse that if they want them, I'm either going to make them as flat round cookies, or they can make them themselves, because they're so you have to butter each of the tins individually, and even then they're going to get stuck if you don't take them out. Like, if you take them out directly out of the oven, they're going to fall apart because they're warm. I mean, cookies just fall apart. But if you wait until they are completely cold, they're going to be completely stuck. So you have to find the sweet spot. Come on. Where they're just warm enough that they can get out of the tin, but not so warm that they are going to fall apart. They're a bother to make. I don't like making them. I would rather make any other beige cookie that is easier to make, but there's always something, isn't there? I also like, and we have such charming names for cookies, don't we? Like poor man, and one of the ones that I really like are called brune pinner, which just means brown sticks. Doesn't that sound like an enticing cookie name? And they're so called just because you usually you have a log, you have your butter pastry, but in this case it has brown sugar and spices and things that actually give it flavor, so it's not just beige, which a lot of the Norwegian Christmas cookies are. And then you roll it out and you flatten it onto a baking sheet in different logs, and you flatten it and you decorate it a bit, you have some sugar and things like that. And as soon as it comes out of the oven, you take a knife and you cut it into sticks. I guess a little bit like the half step for the Italian biscotti, except you don't double bake them, you just do it once. But they are very nice. The brown sugar adds a lot of flavor, and the spices also really... Where did my rest thread go? And I like those. They're one of the ones that I like. Would you like to help? Yeah, it's just thread. I'm sorry, it's not snacks. Apologies. Reminds me of speculatis. It's a Christmas cookie that were traditionally made with irons with a picture inside that would create a relief on the cookie. Yeah, I remember Jente made that, didn't she, last year when we had the gingerbread shenanigans from Minwolden on the YouTubes. She found some amazing spinning wheel speculas molds. They looked so cool. We don't have that for gingerbread, but they were so fun. That was a really fun project. Although, as many projects, it took a whole lot longer to do than I had anticipated, which is every project ever. Alright, let's do this thing. We are getting there, but sadly we're also getting there in terms of time. Come on, if we hurry... No, not hurry. I'm gonna do it in the time it takes. But I had hoped we would be able to do the button as well, so you get to see it entirely finished. But at least, if we do finish this binding, it will be very close to finish. I mean, it will only need a little closure. And that is very close. before I wrap it and send it off on its merry way. We're going to put a few surprises inside because, I mean, how fun is it to give away a containment device if you don't put something in it? I have some of the candies that this person likes in the basement so that we can add a couple of snackies. I'd hoped to, if we had time to find some stuff, I'd hope to find some crafting supplies too. Maybe I can find something in my workroom that we can share with them. You remember the video with the spinning wheel cookies? That was so cute. Yes, exactly. I should have known that. Know that you are a fan of Yenta too, Alex. They are so sweet. But yeah, that video was a lot of fun. I liked it. And a lot, at least with my gingerbread video as well, a lot of people were really responding to the whimsy, especially that time of year when a lot of people are very stressed. Like you need something silly or cozy or calm to help even out the mood. It can be quite challenging anyway. Otherwise. Have I tried Reese's peanut butter cups? I have not. They are indeed a very American thing. I think there are some places you might be able to get something like that, but I don't think I've tried them. I think I would have remembered. I've heard of them, but I haven't tried them. I think going to be difficult, but light chocolate is not really my favorite. I struggle with how fatty it tastes. Like I get really like, I feel like my mouth gets really slimy with the saliva. So I am a dark chocolate girly. I like my bitters and my flavors and the snap and the crunch of a good dark chocolate. Oh, it's delicious. Which kind of works out well because everyone prefers milk chocolate, and Norwegian milk chocolate is supposed to be really, really good. We've had friends from other countries come and visit, and they will ask us later to send them milk chocolate because nothing tastes the same. So I'm quite spoiled for all other kinds of chocolate because we are quite lucky to have very high quality chocolate in Norway. Joanna says they're not a fan of peanut butter. I cannot imagine that it does not ruin the chocolate. Interesting. I am a fan of peanut butter. I like peanut butter, especially like peanut butter sauce on like noodles and things like that, with carrots and glass noodles and all sorts of delicious things. Or just on a slice of bread with some banana, but I don't eat it a lot. I have to sit up, madam. Sorry. Yeah, I like crunchy peanut butter, although I always have to stir it up from all the oils floating to the top. My friend and her family do a yearly cookie bake together, and they call it Cookie Palooza, where they make as many batches and types of cookies as possible in one day. It's a lot of work, but a lot of fun. Oh, that does sound like a lot of work, Stripey Crayons. Like, I think the most I've done in a day is like 2 or 3 different kinds, because by then I'm quite exhausted and fed up with making cookies. But, pardon, if you're doing it with friends, you get that kind of fun energy vibe, don't you, where you get into this thing. I have a friend and we work really well together, where it's very easy to do more work and keep working because you're kind of feeding off each other's energy and taking care of... You often forget to take breaks when we do that, but at the same time it is a lot of fun to you see how much you get done with those people that you work really well with. It's really, really cool. Peanut butter cups are pretty good. The salty works well with the sweet, like salted caramel. Yeah, I would agree with that, absolutely. I once read a chef saying that anyone who says they prefer dark chocolate is just pretending to be elitist, and I've never been so baffled in my life. Imagine projecting that much. That is certainly an interesting take. I mean, preferences are just preferences, aren't they? They're not really a judgment in any which way, usually, unless you're using it to project, like in that case. Yeah, no, I genuinely prefer dark chocolate. Usually in the 60 to 70% range. I mean, when it gets 95% and above, I can't deny that it's quite bitter, and that's more for cooking, but 60 to 70% is delicious. Love it. And there's so much flavor, like you can just put a small piece in your mouth and just let it melt, and you just have flavor for a good long while. It's very, very good. And also, I get I guess this is something that is the older I get, the more I understand my grandparents. Like in Norway, there's a really big thing that you have coffee and cake. And especially with old people, you don't have one or the other, you have both. You have the sweet cake and then you have the bitter coffee to offset the sweet. And as a child, of course, I wouldn't get coffee, I would just have the cake, because children have a really big sweet tooth. So, they want the berries and the sweets and the candy. But the older I get, the more I like bitter, the more I crave bitter. There are some desserts now that I can't really eat anymore, at least not in their usual shape, because they're just so sweet. I need something bitter next to it. So I'm growing really fond of those sweet and bitter desserts, like a good tiramisu with like good chocolate or matcha, and things like that. But also, one of the things that I'm really struggling with is milk chocolate and ice cream, which I used to love, and I'm now going like, oh no, that's too much for me. I can't really take the richness of it and the sweetness without anything to offset it with. But I have found, and it's delicious. It's expensive, but it's delicious. But once in a while, we'll get a small tub of, artisan ice cream. And there's one of the artisan brands that I've made, one they call mocha, like coffee mocha. And it is a coffee flavored ice cream with small chunks of dark chocolate inside. It's like it was meant for me. I love it. It's so nice. And it's that perfect balance between, it's still a sweet ice cream, but with the coffee in it, it offsets the sweet, and it's just, yes. Yes, please. I think it's delicious anyway. That's my favorite ice cream. And we get it once in a while because it is quite pricey, but we had a tub recently because it was the Christmas season, and we just finished it today after dinner, and so good. My dad and my late little sister are a huge fan of white chocolate because I think it's maybe low in fat, and it might be caffeine free. That means less migraines. Well, some people get migraine from chocolate and some people don't. Not all people have a chocolate as a trigger, but there isn't caffeine in chocolate. It's theobromine. It's a different compound. But white chocolate is entirely cocoa fat. It's entirely fat, so I wouldn't agree that it's less fat unless it's strangely made. But if it's traditional white chocolate, it's just the cocoa butter without any of the cocoa solids. But it's still delicious. I like it in cookies, like in small chunks. I think it can be really nice. But yeah, I don't ascribe to the avoid all the citrus and chocolate and cured meats. And what's the others? Can't remember the rest. But there is that list of like seafoods that people with migraines should avoid, and I don't. You should avoid it if it is a trigger for you, but not everyone has the same triggers. So if you don't get triggered by it, you can have it. Opinions on the spicy dark chocolate with chili flakes on it. I'm not the best with spicy foods, so that is not the go-to for me. I usually go for a dark chocolate with like salty pecans or caramelized nuts. I think those are really nice. I think a good chili chocolate can be really tasty, but I don't buy it very often. It's not like my go-to personally, but I know a lot of friends who really like it. So again, we're not gonna judge anyone's deliciousness. I have a friend who makes really nice spicy hot cocoa, and she always gives, serves it when I'm visiting. She will add chili and she'll add cinnamon and nutmeg and like a lot of, and it gets super warming and nice, like perfect in winter. It's so good. And it has all of those things, a little hit from the chili and the warmth of the spices. And then, of course, the dark and the richness of the cocoa is just such a nice combination. Of course, I forgot. Someone suggested that I wax my thread since it was a bothersome thread when I was struggling with it. And I forgot again, so we have not again. But we are about to have some ads, so let's see if I can fight with this knot for then, or if I just have to give up and cut it. It seems to be a not very cooperative little knot. Yeah, no, I'm not sure we're going to be able to actually. Yeah, no. Goodbye. Luxelaire has already left us. I hope you have a good study evening. Even if I'm very late to responding. I'm getting enthusiastic about chocolate. Coffee and cake, that's a German thing too. Interesting. It's like tea time with the Brits, but like earlier in the day, like 3 to 5 p.m. Coffee and cake in Norway can be at any time. Like with grandparents, it can be an evening thing. But yeah, it is good times when you're taking a break for coffee and cake. In Swedish, they call it fika, and it's also like an occasion to take a break. And it's also usually that spot between lunch and dinner. Very nice. I prefer my chocolate on the sour and green side, so even most dark chocolate on the market doesn't hit the spot for me. Aww. It's difficult when you have tastes that make it hard to find the stuff that you like, isn't it? Yeah. There was a period of time where the chocolate producers in Norway were testing out some darker chocolate variations in the 60% range, and they were delicious. I loved them. They were so smooth and so nice and amazing. But I have the taste buds of a grandma, and no one else, or at least not enough other people, liked it as well, so it got pulled off the market. All of them. All of the experiments from the producers that I loved that were like semi-dark, not really dark, but like midway between light and dark, all of them got pulled from the market, and I was so sad when I realized that I couldn't get any of them anymore. It's even called kaffetrinken, and you can also eat another sweet or baked good apart from the cakes, cookies, or whatever. Yeah, like cinnamon roll buns and all sorts of things. Everything goes. Eve says, I've had dark chocolate and hot chocolate in Peru and I'm ruined for it anywhere else. I believe that, Evie. I mean, having it from the source, that's a dream. Like, if I had all the money and all the time in the world, that's one thing that I might want to do, is take that friend who is such a fan of putting chili and nutmeg and cinnamon in her chocolate and making it every Sunday sharp. That is her candy for the week. Like, she'll make a mug of hot chocolate and enjoy it in the morning with her breakfast. Like, if I took her to a place like Peru to have proper original hot chocolate, that would be pretty cool. That ice cream sounds delicious. It is. It's so good. It's so worth it. But we can't get it that often, but oh my goodness, it's so delicious. South American chocolate is on another level. Yeah, I have not tried it, but I believe you. I absolutely believe you. They know what they're doing and have been doing that for a long time. I get migraines from chocolate. Lucky for me that I don't particularly like it either. Yeah, it's definitely a trigger for some people with migraines, but it's at least you don't feel the need for it. That's a good thing. Who else likes biting on cocoa nibs? Our school went on a tour to one of the chocolate producers in Norway once. We got some cocoa nibs, and they're not. Oh wait, maybe they are. I was gonna say that they're not that easy to get in Norway, but I think some of the health food shops have them. They're of course very expensive, but we got a couple of cocoa nibs from that tour, and yeah, I too enjoy like nibbling on them. They're so crunchy and nice. I have no idea why all the ads I'm getting at the moment are for some spiritual woo-woo. I couldn't tell you. Is it the season for that kind of thing too? I don't know. It doesn't show me what ads it puts anywhere, so I just have to sort of accept that they get put somewhere. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe it thinks you're into that, but at least it makes it easy to resist the marketing of the thing. Yeah, we don't really watch TV in our house. Sometimes we'll watch like YouTube videos and movies and stuff like that. We don't really watch, TV like a lot of many millennials. We don't really do like what in Norway, I think, and elsewhere too, it's called linear TV, where it's like a channel that just runs things that are going. Madam, you are very hard to document when you keep moving. There you go, sweet. Can't disappoint your audience. So whenever we visit family members who do have that tradition of having the TV on in the background, we're so flabbergasted by the ads. They're so... I don't know, I guess they're memorable, but not in a good way, but perhaps their attitude is, so long as they're memorable, that's good enough. I don't know, yeah. And there's so much ads too. Nothing compared to the US as far as I understand, but I think it's a lot when we're used to not really getting ads. Evie continues the chocolate story. It was funny because the Peruvian guide at the chocolate museum was going on about how Switzerland has the best chocolate. Wow, it could be grass is always greener on the other side of the fence. That is interesting that they would say that even in South America, even in Peru. Wow, that is that is interesting. Sweet. Yeah, Swiss chocolate is good. When I was doing my PhD, I had a professor who retired while I worked there, and they were Swiss, but they'd been in Norway for, decades doing research, being a tenured professor, and that kind of thing. And they went for, and I don't know, but we got along quite well. They were not my supervisor, but we worked together. Like they taught analytical chemistry, the basic courses. And I helped them quite a bit, like a lot of my work. One of my 4 years was allocated to teaching, and I did quite a lot of teaching with this person. And when they went back for the holidays one year, they brought me a tin of Swiss chocolate, and it was so sweet of them. I still have the tin sitting around here as a gift before they retired, and I thought that was so sweet. It was very, very sweet of them. It's so strange when their office was empty, because so many professors just keep an office when they become emeritus professors, don't they? But some are able to retire completely, and this was one of those people, and that was quite interesting. Although my supervisor was hired to become their successor, like they knew he was retiring soon, so they had in their contract that they needed to learn Norwegian in, I think, 3 to 5 years, because the basic courses, the bachelor level courses, are all taught more or less in Norwegian, while master level courses can be taught in English. So they had quite a pressure to learn the language at a level where they could teach it in time before this professor retired, which is not the easiest thing to do. It was a fun class. We did the labs. Analytical labs are fun. At least I think so. You get to look at the thing. And also it's fun because you get to do a thing that you don't usually get to do. Like when you're baking, you don't get to unmix flour and sugar. But in chromatography and analytical chemistry, you do get to separate things, and that is quite fun. Like you get to separate a mixture into the individual components, and that can be so much fun to get the mixture right and get the conditions right, that it separates beautifully. It's quite fun. My little burnt loaf. Who else has the best assistant? Hanging out in their workroom, checking out what they're doing most of the time. Not always, but a lot of the time. I do have nice company. Did you also learn to unscramble eggs? Did you? I can't tell if you are joking with... I mean, I think you're joking, but I mean, we did so many strange analytical lab things that it's not always clear to me when people are joking or if there is an experiment to do that. We did not unscramble eggs in any of my labs. We did, however, extract the capsaicin from chili peppers. And that was also a really fun lab because... I don't know if it's just Norwegian universities, but analytical chemistry was usually not the fun chemistry. A lot of people would study organic chemistry because it's so much lab work and practical work and stuff like that. But analytical classes are often quite small compared to a lot of the other chemistry classes. So you get to know your professor. So they're just gone to the nearest international shop and just bought all the different chili peppers they could find. And then we all got separated into groups, and each group got a different chili pepper. And then we checked which one got the strongest. That was a really fun class. I remember it well. But a lot of the ones that we did would also focus on practical applications, things like to scare students away from smoking, we would do studies on nicotine. And once we also did a study on, we actually got to visit, when I was in Tromsø, the university hospital was right across the road, and there was a lot of collaboration going on between them. So we once had on a course that was all about, here are different lab techniques for different fields of study. So we got to visit the drug department, where they test for illicit drugs at the different levels. And then we all, because in Norway we have, similar to cranberries, but they're called lingonberries, they have a chemical in them that is very easy to detect. I can't remember which compound, but we have a method for it. So what we did was that we went to the cafe, the teacher got us waffles, and we put lingonberry jam on top and sour cream, and we ate it and we had a good time. And then we peed in a cup because, as you do for labs, and then we went and we tested it, and we talked about dilution levels and how much people were drinking water and things like that. And we went and we tested it for drugs and this chemical in the lingonberries, so that they saw how it works when you're working in healthcare. And that was a lot of fun. Have to get going. Happy spinning, sewing, crafting. Have a good one, Evie. Hope to see you again soon. I mean, I'll see you outside of the live streams too, but have a good one. We are going to be sitting here for a little bit longer. I still haven't finished the binding on this pouch, but we are getting there. You were joking? Yeah. I thought, but I wasn't sure, because chemistry can do so many things. It could be a lab I hadn't heard of. Scrambling eggs is one of the examples for a non-reversible process unless the eggs are extremely viscous. There have been some experiments where they stirred very viscous liquids and it was reversible to some extent. Ooh, that's fascinating. I had not heard of that. We did not talk about the irreversibility of mixing eggs. That is fascinating. That is basically how Scoville units are done for peppers, right? Yeah, exactly. You would take the capsaicin out and you extract it, and of course you would have to weigh it and measure and make sure that you get a unit of capsaicin per gram or whatever of peppers. But yeah, that's exactly how they do it. So we got our own little, very basic Scoville rating for at the time, whatever peppers were available in that international shop. It was a fun lab. I like it when they manage to get practical applications, or at least you get some sort of real life connection. It makes it so much easier to remember what you've been doing. We even had a very sweet theoretical chemistry professor trying to do a real life application for theoretical chemistry, which, if you don't know, it's quite hard to do, because theoretical chemistry is approaching quantum physics. It's kind of very theoretical, very mathematical. So to find a practical application and do a lab experiment for theoretical chemistry is quite hard. They did their best. I've had so many sweet professors throughout the years who really love the subject that they're teaching and just really want students to like it half as much as they do, I wonder how you'd like Mexican mole then, a paste cooking sauce made with cocoa and spices, available in countless varieties. I don't know, Catpaw. I once tried to make a mole with chicken and mole sauce with dark chocolate, and it was delicious. I did it with the same friend who does hot cocoa every Sunday while I was living at their house. It was delicious, but I always have this sort of... We had an international cookbook, but I never trust quite how authentic they are, especially if they're really old. So I always have this caveat whenever I try to make food from different cuisines and different cultures, that even if what I made is delicious, I don't know if what I made is authentic, and it most likely isn't, because I don't have access to the same ingredients and the same resources and the same cooking utensils and devices, and so I tried to make it once and it was really good, but I don't know how even close to the real thing I could get. But I would be up for tasting it if I ever had the chance, because it sounds absolutely delicious. Joined late, what are you working on? What is your cat's name? Yes. See, this is Soot. We have 2 cats. This is Soot. Embla doesn't usually join us for these chats because she is very, very much bound to Spouse. She loves Spouse, but Soot is a more versatile cat and fond of both of us, so she is very sweet. It was supposed to be short for Susuvatari from Ghibli, but she just became Soot, and it's fun to me because Soot in English and Sot in Norwegian are the same. There's just 2 O's in one and 1 O in the other, and they mean the same thing, which to me is like a little bilingual pun, and I really like it. And she's very sweet. She likes food, she likes snacks, can always be enticed to move off of laps if you need to go do other things by shaking a snack jar. She also likes pulling pins out of things if they are stabbing her, and running away with balls of yarn and small strips of wool that she then proudly comes to us with to show her great hunting prowess. So I have to try to hide my wool and my yarn when I'm not using it. And what I'm working on is I am just sewing on the binding of this little, I guess some call it clutch, like a little pouch, a little storage device. This is Victorian crazy patchwork, so it has all these little scrap pieces. I can't really get all that close to the camera so you can see it properly, but it has embroidery stitches on each edge where every piece meets a different piece of scrap fabric, and then some of them also has embroidery inside the patchwork so that it's kind of just covered in different embroidery stitches of different kinds. And right now I'm just stitching on the binding to finish it off. I'm gonna give it away for the holidays, so it's just missing the binding, and I have been working on this since the live stream started, I think in March this year. This has kind of been my go-to project if I don't know what to work on. This is what I've been working on, so it's been almost a year that I've been working on it. But I was so close to finishing it that I thought it is the season to be giving things away, so I wanted to finish it, to give it away. So this is the last time it shall appear on stream. Then we have to find a different forever project to work on, which shouldn't be a problem, to be honest. This let says, I love lingonberries. Yes, they are delicious. I like them just stirred. Here you can buy them frozen or in jam form, and I like to buy them frozen because you can just thaw them and just mix them with sugar without boiling them. You just do them like that because lingonberries are one of the few berries that have a self-preservative, so they will still last quite a while in the fridge if you don't boil them. And they are so tart and fresh and yeah, just lovely. So I have some bags of frozen lingonberries in the freezer that we're going to make for the holiday season, because it is the season for that kind of deliciousness. This chat has made me very hungry, so I will go eat. I am sorry, Stripy Crayons. I'm so glad I caught the stream. Happy crafting, everyone. Happy crafting, Stripy Crayons. I apologize that we are making you hungry. I do, of course, fear that we sometimes do fall into the culinary rants, because I do enjoy cooking, although I don't know, and not everyone does, but lingonberries, are you fighting over spelling? I mean, either way, they are delicious. Madam, are you just moving out of frame on purpose because you can, My very long sausage. You're making naughty jokes. Ah! I'm afraid I didn't catch the joke. Shame on me. Although when I did catch naughty jokes, that was also my go-to strategy in high school. If I was embarrassed by things, I would just pretend I didn't get it. It works really well. Do recommend if you're struggling with that. It was very efficient. And often I didn't get it either, so there was that. Alright, we're over halfway. So there's, well, I mean, we're over halfway since we already turned it around, but on the second round we are already halfway with our whip stitches along the word. Just look up the word lingam. I see. I might do that, but probably not on stream. If it is not a joke. Ooh, and this is a digression, but I don't know if you can see this, but I also inherited a stack of loot from relatives who have passed away, and amongst them was this. Oh, come on, camera, you can't really see it, can you? Whoop, whoop. Focus. Amongst them was this old spool of linen thread, and it's so beautiful. The thread is still good too, like it's not brittle, but it is. I'm torn between. I'm going to use it because it's thread, but also it's pretty, and I kind of just want to keep it hanging around. Hello, Lee Ard. Welcome to this silly back and forth talk about everything, everywhere, all at once. And oh, I guess we can close this one. Ever have pets who just like step inside the box of pins and then you panic that they're gonna get hurt? A friend of mine had a dog who did that, like would just step whole paw into the box of pins, and you panic and you're like, oh no, and then they pull the paw out and they're completely fine, because a lot of the time the pins are lying flat so they don't actually get hurt, but it's so scary. I don't like it. But yeah, Sud will pull pins out if she can, especially if she's lying on my work in progress and the pins are stabbing her. She'll be like, go away from my bed. Which is very cute, but also a bit frustrating, because, the pins are there for a reason, but Madam disagrees. You just learned something new. Lingam has another meaning too, apart from the one you thought of. It can also be something innocuous. I love it when words have multiple meanings, especially if you write sentences where it works both ways, so that either if you read it in one meaning or the other, they both make sense, so you can't be sure which way the writer intended, or maybe the writer intended to use it in that kind of by meaning way. Like when you can make that work, I think that is a lot of fun. When you get those double meanings really, really working. It's just, people who play with language are such fun. I think it is a lot of fun to see people being playful. It's difficult to get a good shot of you, madam, when you keep moving. Just learned about a delightful little non-profit in your city which accepts donations of unwanted craft supplies, scrap fabrics, etc. to make into craft kits and supplies for sale. Ooh, I like that. That is a very good, because often craft supplies are not the most popular. Like, people don't want small tins of, but to making it into craft sets and craft kits, that is very clever. I know that they always pop up. One of the knitting yarn shops here, they've started doing knitting kits, in especially this time of year when people are looking for gifts, where they will put an already printed recipe, maybe even the knitting needles, but usually not. I think you have to ask for that. And then they will put the yarn that the person will need, and all the instructions, everything already in a Ziploc bag, all wrapped up, all the colors that they're going to need, all the amounts of yarn that they're going to need, usually small kits like, mittens and hats and things like that. But they will put everything so it's all ready to go. And they will sell loads and loads of them, because it's such a nice, easy, pre-made gift to give to someone else, and they're quite popular. So I think crafting kits is a really good idea to deal with, how a lot of secondhand shops don't really have a lot of sale of craft supplies. Usually you can find crochet hooks for $5 5 NOK, which is, $1, half a dollar. And so, it's not the thing they sell the most of. From the look of things, I would think like kitchenware and clothing, because that's usually what a lot of the secondhand shops have, is that kind of supplies. But crafting supplies, that's very good that they managed to find a place to use it for, because a lot of secondhand shops in Norway, they don't even have craft supplies because they can't really sell it. They've also had, like, some of the shops have had, like, people training for jobs, turning old quilt blankets, hello sweetie, into clutches and purses and wallets and things. Hi. Where am I supposed to put my arm? I like that. I like that they've been able to find a different way to do it. Hello. I apologize. I do need some space. Come on, we can do it. We can finish the thing. Don't think we're going to have time to do the button. We're going to have to do that off screen, but at least we are very close to finishing her. Although I do have some, like, this has been the go-to live streaming project for so long, with a few others in between, that it's kind of strange to be finishing her up and having to find something else to do. Maybe I'll just find some other scrap projects to do, because they're so consuming of time. That's the thing with patchwork and scraps, isn't it? That because they are so small, they take so long, which does make them really good live stream opportunities. Finally done! Congratulations, Lynn. That is very nice. It's always nice to finish what everyone has been working on. Why do I immediately launch into a big cooking thing when I'm barely recovering? That is a good question, Lynn. I mean, why do we, when we're having a flare-up, try to do all the things? Or other things? I too have had, like, things I've been like, oh yeah, but I need to do this today, and started doing it before I realized that I'm actually too sick to do this thing. But now I've already used the ingredients. It's very frustrating. I'm trying to get better at it, but it's hard when you're in a flare period and you feel like no days are good days. So I do commiserate, I do sympathize, and hope you take some time to let yourself rest a bit after this, after you've finished. Because it sounds like your body decidedly needs it. You doing a crazy quilt? Me too? Yes! We are just finishing a little crazy quilt pouch that I'm gonna give away for the winter solstice, so excited for that. Perhaps I'm especially blessed for thrifting options when it comes to craft supplies. Our local senior center also has a thrift shop with a huge selection of craft supplies donated to the center. I'm kind of want to visit that, to be fair honest with you, because I have never seen that, like a secondhand shop with a lot of craft supplies. That is, usually they have a small section, but not a lot. I'm kind of curious about that. That sounds really amazing. We are about to have some ads, and I should. But now I'm worried about filling my thermos, because my mute wasn't working earlier, and I would rather prefer if it did. Oh, okay, I have some more here. A friend of ours had a kid, and their aunt was, every time they drank from their tea, they would go, ah. And for a short period of time, that was absolutely adorable. Every time that child took a sip of anything, they would go, ah. And it was the cutest thing. It only lasted for a few months, but it was so adorable. So sweet. I'll post pictures on Discord. Pretty happy with it? Yeah, please do. It's always fun to see what people are making. And you make such beautiful bentos too. I think we do over-ambitious things when sick because while our body needs rest, our brains need stimulation and creative outlets. After a bad few days health-wise, I give myself extra time for play. That is a very good strategy. I find that there's kind of a difference. You know, there's when you're having a big flare-up, you get, when I'm really sick, I can't just be in bed and sleep. I can't do anything else. Religious ads? Oh, that's interesting. Good luck with that. But yeah, I mean, there's always that period when you're sick where, like, when you're so sick that you can't do anything, you're just sleeping, so it doesn't matter, you don't get bored. But when you're in recovery, you'll have that period of time where you're too sick to do something, but you're not so sick that you're just sleeping, so you have to lie there and get bored, but you don't have the energy to do anything. It's the worst, especially if it lasts for several days. It's very frustrating. But I also know that personally I do too much when I'm sick because I get so fed up with being sick. I don't want to be sick, so I'm, you know, trying to gaslight myself or force myself to be like, yeah, but maybe you're not that sick. Maybe you can do some of these other things instead, and then you try, and then it's even worse than you thought it was going to be. And yeah, you really are that sick, even if you try to tell yourself that you're not sick. It doesn't really work, much as large parts of society are like, no, it's just in your head. It's like, no, well, migraines kind of, but still not really. Also, brains are part of the body, so why is that an effective argument in any way, shape, or form? But yeah, I just get so fed up with being sick. Like, I get angry with with being sick, and I want to pretend I'm not, and then that just make things worse. I think the advertisers believe that people who follow handcrafting streams must be totally into religion and or spiritualism. Yeah, I mean, that sounds similar to how a lot of the homesteading and homemaking, like sourdough bread making and farming content is also really, really religious. And that there are more and more channels being like, follow me if you want homesteading content, but not the religious, sexist bullshit. Like, and I guess it's the same with crafting. A lot of the channels are a lot more traditional, I should say. Conservative, is that the word? But we are not about that life. If it makes you happy and doesn't hurt people, what is the problem? I genuinely don't see the problem. Luxury cruises, I mean, who's paying never appealed to me, but it looks beautiful. I don't know. I mean, I don't like cruises because they're such a polluting form to vacation for all, but I have been on one. My grandmother, when they turned 70, had saved up and also did take quite a bit on loan, but they had been saving up to take our very small family on a cruise, and I had the opportunity to join. So that is the first and only ever time I've been on a cruise. It was I think it was a week long, so quite long. And I found that I was like, yeah, this is not quite the vacation form for me. Also, I couldn't find any dark bread. I think like Germans and probably Danes in the chat will relate to me, but a lot of cruises are made by and to appeal to American consumers. So for breakfast there was a lot of sweet pastries, which I do not want sweet in the morning. I want dark, whole wheat, whole grain, savory. And everything was croissants and cinnamon buns and white bread and sweets. And there was like one basket of semi-dark bread. Still not quite dark bread, but at least it wasn't sweet. And I was just, the whole week I was going there going, where is my dark bread and rye bread and whole grain bread? And where is the savory?
telling myself I can just will myself into being well if I try hard enough. If it worked that way, I'd have figured out how to do it by now. I know, Sarah, but I still try. It's still so appealing. Like, if I just... Everyone says it's mental, so if I just think it hard enough, maybe I can will myself into not being sick, and somehow it hasn't worked by now. I'm still sick, and I still get flare-ups, and yeah, no. If it was that easy, we would have done it already, wouldn't we? No one wants to go around being sick and having flare-ups at the most ill-timed of moments. I had them on a very not appropriate for religion YouTube stream the other day, so it seems it's a general trend. Maybe it's the season. I mean, the holidays are religious for a lot of people. It's not really something we did in my family. We didn't go to church on the day, which a lot of families do. We didn't have really a lot of religious connotations, which is weird because it is an appropriated Christian holiday. Although I try to like talk about Yule and the winter solstice instead because I want to take back the northern tradition of celebrating the darkest time of the year so that you can look forward to every day getting lighter from there on out, which is part of the reasons I don't want to abandon the holidays entirely either, because I want to reclaim the winter solstice celebrations and the older Yule celebrations, but it's hard because everything is about the holidays and religion, and yeah, it's difficult. I was looking for DIY decoration videos the other day, and let me tell you, dodging the tradwives was an interesting sport. I believe you. Very much so. And also it's a time that never existed, isn't it? It's a very interesting thing to be yearning towards. And also a very specific time of our life, like right after World War II, when they had to get the women out of the workforce so the men could get their jobs back. They had to create this housewife role, and it's a fabricated thing. It's so fascinating and so tragical. Oh, you like archaeology? You must like this Antillation pyramid power plants video. I'm sorry, what? That sounds like conspiracy theory to end all conspiracy theories. Yeah, it is is it Minute Man that does a lot of debunking of that kind of speculative history nonsense, and it's not quite my vibe, but it's very good that they are out there sharing information to counter a lot of that conspiracy theorist stuff that doesn't have anything to do with history, because it's very needed, because the conspiracy theories are so alluring, aren't they? Especially if if there are no other dissenting voices to give them other points of view. Speaking of, I think I need to lay back down for another nap. Have a good one, Sarah. Take care of yourself. We are almost about to wrap up anyway. I just really wanted to finish this seam so you get to see it finished, even if I don't get to do the closure right now. YouTube, you like scholarly lectures about the history of Abrahamic religions? Guess you also want to join a Torah course. Well, I wouldn't mind a Torah course, so anything. I do like interesting stories about things, but yeah, not interested in converting to any religion, but I would learn the history about them, gladly. Oh, you watched Thai other cooking video? You must want fast food. Oh, interesting. I have not seen that, but yeah, I guess food and food. As a child, I used to tell myself that, and this is entirely false, but I mean, ads do work, otherwise they wouldn't be spending so much money on them. But as a child, I would always tell myself that if they need to advertise, their business can't be going very well, can they? And that sort of helped me not be... not that it really appealed to me anyway. I guess that's kind of the... I'm not the right target audience for a lot of things, luckily for me, but washing, madam. I'm trying hard to find a position where I'm not disturbing you, but Oh, we're so close. Are we gonna win thread chicken though? I think we might. It's just whip stitches. Whip stitches don't take up that much space. Or like thread. I like the saying or like theory of having cats to learn to have boundaries, because cats can be very good about boundaries. And also that some people, not all people, but some people who don't like cats because cats have boundaries. And I guess that's something we can all learn from these little feline sweethearts. We have like, I don't know, 2 inches? 5 centimeters? And you're very industrious, madam. Come on, you don't have to make knots now. We're so close to the end. The thread senses the end. Are you leaving us, madam? You can go up there if you would like. Oh, sweetie. Can I get a shot of this? Let's see. Unplug the camera. Or the phone, because you don't need that much of a charge now that we are finishing. Almost. Look at my girl and her little wool cardigan. Aren't you the cutest? Mm. I've found that a lot of cats understand their boundaries and pretend not to understand others' boundaries. That's a good point, but our boundaries are our own responsibility, aren't they? If they don't respect them, we have to respect them ourselves, which is the hard part. Sneaking in during my planning time. Perfect background for grading spelling tests. You and yours are doing well. We are, thank you. We're a bit overwhelmed. It's been a year, but we are getting there slowly. We haven't really managed to do much decorating or cooking this year, but we are trying to comfort ourselves that there will be a next year. So even if this year feels a little bit barer than usual, it will be all right. But I hope you are having a good time grading those spelling tests. We are almost finishing up. I'm just finishing this little edge here with the last of the thread. Perfect little void. Yes, she's such a sweetheart. Although I'm not really sure why she's willing to lie on the spot I've given her on my desk while streaming, because she absolutely categorically refuses to do so while I'm working. Then she wants to be in my lap, or preferably on top of my keyboard, which is why we got the ring sling I use in some of my videos, because I can't have her on top of my keyboard. So I'm trying to teach her that either she'll be on the cardigan, which used to be a basket, or she has to be content to be in the ring sling. She can't be on the rest of my desk, which means that every time she does go in front of my keyboard, I have to go and get the sling and follow through on that. But she is so sweet. When she's in the ring sling, she kind of just goes, "Oh, this is alright then," and she falls asleep. It is so sweet. But it did take her a while to get used to it. But if you do have a Velcro cat, that could be a fun way to do stuff, but depends on the cat. But the one I found was some hand woven, I think Slovakia silk and wool shawl, which shouldn't be as cheap as it was secondhand, but sometimes you just find treasures secondhand. I think it was like 500 NOK or $50, £50 thereabouts. And it keeps me warm. It's very nice for me as well, because it's like wearing a shawl, and then you have a warm cat on your side as well. She likes to lie like on my side. Oops, sorry. And so we're both warming each other with a source of heat, and it's so sweet. I have to go take the kids to bed. Thanks for the evening. Thank you too, Alex. Hope you have a good one. We have just finished, and now I can lean forward too so you can see it properly. We just finished finding the binding on this little project, so there's that finished. So nice to actually get to finish some stuff. Still fairly simple, but I like it. It's kind of, I like all the different embroidery colors and all the different styles of patches and things like that. It makes it like happy little project. But yeah, that I guess concludes the live stream for today. I had a very good time. I hope you had a somewhat good time as well. I hope to do another one between the holidays and New Year's, but we shall see how the health goes as usual. You know, if you want to make sure if I'm doing a live stream on the Thursday or not, do join our Discord so that you can actually see whether I am sick that day or not. But other than that, I hope you really have a good rest of December, a good holiday if you do celebrate, a good end of the year, no matter if you do not, and take care of yourselves. Have a good one. Me and this little void are going to relax for the rest of the evening, and yeah, have a very good time. Take care of yourselves. Take time to yourself, even if you're stressed. And yeah, thank you for today. Bye.